Today on Locked On Canadiens, is Michael Pezzetta still alive?
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to episode 1202. We want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. As you know, we're free and available wherever you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube as part of the Locked On Podcast, where you get your team podcast network, where you get your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Laura Sab, also known as The Active Stick. We've got a packed show today, including, stay tuned for details on our contest. But first, I'd like to welcome my wonderful co-host, who's very pumped for one of the things we're going to talk about, or at least two of the things we're going to talk about on today's episode. Ian, how are you doing on this fine Tuesday evening?
Really good. We talked about the lineup of what we're going to roll out today and just got increasingly more excited. The Canadiens off days are kind of fun because a lot of times we get bogged down in like the games of the regular season, but like off days are when we can kind of just talk about the things that we're really interested in or just random thoughts we have on our commute home, which is where some of this comes from. So very excited to talk about all of this with you.
So off the top, we are going to talk about Suzuki and Caufield. I mainly wanted to talk about them because there were some cool stats in an article I found. So I definitely wanted to bring them up. And then we're wondering about Michael Pezzetta. Does he still exist? Is he still on the Habs? Has anyone seen him? Is he alive? And then finally, in our third segment, we are going to talk about the. I'm not going to call it a saga because right now it's just a mess. The tampering. The allegations of tampering that are going from Ottawa in the direction of the New York Rangers. We are going to talk about that a little bit later. But first, let's talk about Nick Suzuki and Cole Caufield. Ian, are you ready?
Yes, let's do it. Very excited.
Okay. So one of the things that I really like to do is I like to read Travis Yost's articles on TSN.com. One of the reasons is because they're usually a lot more condensed than some of the other work that he does. But also he has a knack for finding and distilling certain stats. And the thesis of his article is that Nick Suzuki and Cole Caufield need some support. And the reason that he's saying that is that he's discovered a lot of good things happen, obviously, when they're on the ice, but they're also being dragged down by a bunch of stuff. So what I really wanted to talk about a little bit, and I know Patrik Laine just came back, right? But we're talking about when those two players are on the ice, not when they're off the ice and Patrik Laine is playing, when they're on the ice, right? So this kind of, it blew my mind a little bit, but it's not super surprising. So when both Caufield and Suzuki are on the ice, Montreal's actually outscoring their opponents. And then even if there's one of the two of the ice, like Montreal is still outscoring their opponents, right? Yeah. So this is actually quite incredible because we've talked a lot about how, they're having a lot of tough assignments, and they're, like this year, they're not getting a whole lot of support, but they're still managing to outscore their opponents. Now, one of the things that Travis Yost discovered is if you take one of the two away, so the goal differentials that they currently have while they're both on the ice, they're on par with the Edmonton Oilers. Now, we don't have a lot of, we don't put a lot of stock in the Edmonton Oilers because the Canadiens were able to very easily beat them. But if you take one of the two away, Montreal looks like the Anaheim Ducks. But if you take both the players off the ice, they are indiscernible from the San Jose Sharks or the Pittsburgh Penguins. This is obviously in the number percent. But here is the thing that I thought was super surprising is that when they're on the ice, they are getting .870 goaltending, which I thought was really interesting. So, and it doesn't really gel with what I thought because a lot of times when they're on the ice, it's a power play, right? They are also two of the players that are responsible for a lot of the scoring on this team. So what is happening that they are also like the whatever the opposite of beneficiary is. They're losing out in terms of the goals allowed. And I think it's that whoever's playing with them often ends up not being able to get the puck out of the defensive zone.
Well, yeah, that is one hypothesis. The funnier one is that Sam Montembeault was trying to sink both of their chances at the Four Nations, in which he was successful while also still being able to make the roster himself. So let's not put that away, Montembeault. We're on to you. Um, yeah, I mean, Newhook's playing okay on that line right now. Like, I know people are dying to get Line A on there, and I have the jersey. I've been there, done that. Literally bought the T-shirt. I want him playing as much as possible too. But I don't really like. I don't know what difference it makes to that line at this point. I want to see Line A get a little bit more up to speed at 5-on-5. 5-on-5 is still a bit of a drag for him and that line, to be honest. But last game there were some better signs. He was getting some more shots from the slot at 5-on-5. They were getting more scoring chances. So it seems like something's turning in a positive direction there. But like, you know, I kind of I kind of want to see the Heineman experiment again. Right? Like we got it for like 10 minutes and it didn't work and they just stopped doing it. Heineman is playing really, really well. He plays a heavy, I'm going to get the puck for these guys kind of game. Isn't that the kind of player that they would need on that line? Because they're not going to go into the corners and win a lot of battles. They can win a couple, but like sending Heineman in there on the forecheck, they're going to end up with the puck more often than they are currently, right? Like that just seems to me like an
It
easy
makes
solution.
sense.
And then he's got a great shot. Like they're going to be focused so hard on the other two that Heineman could just be available and ready to score. I don't know. I don't know why that didn't get much play, but I see the everyone wants to break up Suzuki and Caufield for some reason, and I don't really know why. Whenever they're together, it works. So just leave it. I don't
Yeah.
understand why.
Apparently, if they're apart, it works too. And the interesting thing was, as of today, so this article came out like 9 hours ago. Not a single other Montreal Canadian has outscored opponents on the ice. Not a
Yeah,
single one.
Suzuki is the only plus. I know plus minus
Yeah,
is a garbage stat, but he's
yeah,
the only plus on the entire roster. I think Kirby Doc is currently leading the race for the green jacket with the lowest the lowest plus minus in the league. So hopefully that turns around. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean that's plus minus, like I said, is a garbage stat, but it's kind of telling that we only have one player who's
yes.
in the black, so to speak.
Right. So, okay. So, one of the solutions that you proposed is giving the Heineman experiment a little bit of a longer chance. I think you talked about Newhook playing really well right now. So, I
Yeah.
feel like they should leave that as is for now. But the second it goes south, they should experiment with Heineman. Like, I feel like that's kind of part of it. And also, who's playing behind them, right? So, they obviously have had kind of a little bit of a rotation depending on the situation, depending on the day, depending on whether Mike Matheson is injured or taking a therapy day or whoever. Caden Gooley has had Josh Anderson sushi leftovers. It's really hard to kind of predict, but like I think the real thing there is yes, those two need support while they're on the ice, but the Canadians also really need to work towards the rest of the lineup also being able to eventually outscore their opponents. I think that's my
Yeah.
biggest takeaway from that. Is there
Yeah,
any other
I
radical
agree.
idea?
I don't know if there's any more radical ideas, but I think a lot of their issues are solved by the second line figuring it out. And I know everyone's tired of that discussion, but it's a big point right now.
Yeah,
I do think that Doc and Slafkovsky are playing a little bit better than their numbers would show, at least like their raw like goals and everything. I was looking through Money Puck earlier, and they're both at the lowest goals above expected. They're both at about -4, meaning both of those guys, the way that they're playing, they should have 4 more goals each than they currently have.
yeah,
That's a big deal. That's 8 more goals for that line, right? Like
yeah,
that's a big deal. So I'm just waiting for their shooting luck to break. We're just
yeah,
waiting for some good stuff to go their way. We got a glimpse of it with Lucas Dolstall gifting one for Slavkovsky and Doc in the last game, but that's not going to happen every night. So like I'm
no.
waiting for that shooting luck to get to improve, and then I think that line will be okay.
Not only that, it's just like think of like you said it's 8 goals, right? Like how many games went into overtime so far this season,
Yeah,
right? There's going to be so many of those that the Canadians could benefit from. And again, I don't want to like crap on the second line too much because they are figuring it out.
yeah,
There's a lot of change, obviously, and we want to be patient with players that came back from injury. But I do think that Patrick Laine, it's not just the star power that he brings. It's not just the offensive threat that he brings. Like I really do feel like he's going to be a stabilizing force on that line as well. And allow the other two. Like we saw them play pretty pretty well when they were using the body. Like I feel like this is going to allow them to kind of do that a little bit more as well.
Yeah, I mean, if Line plays the body like he has the last little while, I mean, he doesn't seem shy about throwing hits in the corners. So
Yeah.
I think, if you're looking for that Heineman type effect while having way more scoring potential, that it's an option that's right there. I think they're
Yes.
trying to ease Line back in as much as they possibly can. I think they're delaying the inevitable. I think we will see Line on that top line before the end of the year.
Yes, and I think it'll be beautiful. But they're still going to need some depth. All right, so coming up in our next segment, we do need to figure out where Michael Pezzetta is and if anyone has seen him recently. That's coming up in just a moment here on Locked On Canadiens. You've heard us talk about FanDuel a lot, and that's because it's America's #1 sports book. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. It's so easy to use, and it's not just the NFL, it's the NHL, MLB, whatever you want. And it's truly the easiest place to go. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. I'm going to say that again real quickly. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports partner of the NFL and us. All right. We were talking earlier about today's show, and Ian, you said, "Where's Michael Pezzetta?" And I just realized I have not seen him in quite some time. I don't even know if he's still alive.
Yeah, I was on my way home from the office, and I don't know. I think about what we'll talk about on the show quite often on those commutes, and I just realized we haven't uttered the name Michael Pezzetta in forever. I think the last time on this show we brought him up was a rumor roundup where I think it was Renaud Lavoie had said that the Devils would take him on as soon as they could. Um, it's weird that we haven't seen him at all. There's been injuries at forward where they've made call-ups and they've played guys from the AHL, and Michael Pezzetta is still just sitting on the sidelines. So of players to have appeared in a game with the Canadiens this year, he's played the second fewest of them. The fewest is Barre Boulet, who played 2 games. Pez has 3. But at least Barre Boulet is playing. He's down in Laval. He's played 16 games. He has 19 points. At least he's playing. Like, the only cardio that Pez is getting is in practice.
Yeah.
He last played in that back-to-back between St. Louis in Montreal versus St. Louis and then in Philadelphia. He has 38 shifts. He has 27 and a half minutes of total time on ice this season. 1 shot, 4 penalty minutes. What are we doing here? Like, what's the plan? It doesn't seem like there's much of an option for him other than to just chill and be the 13th forward who never gets to play because they bring in another 13th forward every time they need one.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too, is that every time someone gets injured, there's a call-up, which is fine. That's totally fine. I get what they're doing there, but I feel like they're wasting his life. And I know people will argue.
That is one way of saying that. Yeah.
That, like they would give anything to like live an NHL life and get paid $1.5 million or whatever it is, $1.2 million, whatever he's getting paid right now.
He's making 800 grand.
He's making 800 grand. Okay.
Yeah.
So, oh my God, I confused him with Arbor I am so sorry.
See, even you forgot about Michael Pezzetta.
Exactly. Like, nobody's getting respect here, Arbor or Michael Pezzetta. But that's the thing. Like, you're making almost $1 million, right? Like, to do nothing, to literally like travel with the team, have dinners with the team, sit on the bench, like go to practices sometimes, lift some weights once in a while. Like, it's unfortunate because I do think that Michael Pezzetta does have something to give. If you don't have too high expectations, like I think he's a great 4th line forward. Absolutely. I think he brings a lot of energy, and I think you have to do something with him because right now you really are wasting his life.
Yeah, I think the thing I find so interesting about it is we keep seeing Justin Barron jump into the lineup so that he stays fresh, right? So that they keep him coming into the line. That's literally the only reason Justin Barron is playing nowadays is so he can play.
Yeah.
I know he's a developing defenseman and it's a different situation. Don't get me wrong, I fully understand that. But the fact that that has not been extended to Michael Pezzetta is still a touch weird. But then you think about it, and it's like, who would they sit at forward, assuming everyone's healthy, which they currently are? Who would they sit at forward so that they can get Michael Pezzetta in a game? Like, I don't know that there is one.
No.
So then it begs the question for me:
What do you
how
do
much
with it?
longer does this last? Like, yeah, do you? I would think Kent Hughes was a player agent. He's a very player first guy. I would think that he's kind of thinking about giving him an opportunity to play somewhere, whether it's waiving him and a team can claim him, or he goes down to Laval and can at least play hockey games again, or trying to find someone who will take him via trade. I'm just really confused by what's happening here.
I think the reason that they're not waiving him is because they don't want to give him away for nothing. And I think that's interesting because I feel like Michael Pezzetta is one of those guys that everyone thinks every GM wants, right?
Yeah,
And so I think that's what Kent Hughes is kind of banking on right now. He's not waiving him because he doesn't want New Jersey or whoever to get him for free. Is
yeah,
essentially it. It's like New Jersey, if you're going to get this guy, you're going to give us a pick.
yeah. I mean,
It can be a
there's a
seventh
lot of
rounder. You're just giving us one.
sure a conditional seventh that can turn into
Yeah.
a sixth if he plays a double-digit number of games. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind
Yeah.
of trade that makes that like would happen tomorrow, and we'd say that makes a ton of sense. I just think there's a lot of teams out there right now who could use a spark, and I don't know that Pezzetta can do that all on his own. But like things are kind of
I mean, he
miserable
did
in
it for
Chicago.
Montreal.
Yeah, yeah.
He did do
I
it for
mean,
Montreal for a little bit.
yeah. I remember. I mean, the shootout winner where he rode his stick like Tiger Williams. That was pretty cool. But
Yeah.
you know, I think like a team like the Blackhawks who could use someone to come in and just be positive energy because they're going through it. Maybe as much as this would suck, maybe the Rangers. The Rangers are not having any kind of fun right now, and they did just lose an enforcer in Jacob Trouba. Could they have a space for Michael Pezzetta to come in? I just like I feel bad for the guy, quite honestly, because I think he's a perfectly, you know, average fourth line NHL player who
With a personality everyone loves.
yeah, he plays like a lunatic, man. Like he's and that's like his calling card is he's got the long hair flowing out the back of the helmet. He's gonna put you into the boards. He'll fight way above his weight class because that's the kind of dude that he is. It's just I find myself being really bummed by the conversation of like this guy let's ask it this way. Has Michael Pezzetta played his last game as a Montreal Canadian, which would have been October 27th if I saw the schedule correctly?
Yeah, it's been a month and a half.
Yeah, I just feel
Yeah.
like if they wanted to play him, they would have,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, particularly for that keeping him fresh argument, right? Like, if you're playing a team you have no hope of beating anyway, why don't you throw him into the lineup there, right?
Yeah, play him against Boston. Why isn't he in that game against Boston? Why is Josh Waugh played that game? Come on. Come on. Like Josh Waugh, you knew you were sending back down to the American Hockey League. Why not just play Pezzetta that game? That
Exactly.
to me is like a if you're not playing him in that moment, I don't know that there's another one you're going to play him in.
Exactly. And so I think that's really like one of the big things too is that if he doesn't have this value to you, who cares if he gets claimed off waivers?
Yeah.
Who cares if you give him away for free? I think there's a principle thing there which I kind of get. But also if you don't think he's worth it, then why do you think someone else is going to think he's worth it?
Yeah, I don't know if the Canadians know this, but they're not very good.
Yeah.
If he's not cracking their lineup, there's probably not a lot of leagues or that would claim him for free unless they're swapping bodies, unless like Montreal gets a depth defenseman,
Right.
or a team is in an injury pinch and they want a player like that. I just find it so weird that we haven't seen him since before Halloween. That's crazy to think
Yeah.
that we are at least in the States, 2 holidays deeper and we have not seen him. It's just very bizarre for a guy that I think is really well liked in that room.
Exactly.
It's
And I think that maybe that's why they keep him around too. Is maybe like they really like his energy. They don't need his play, but they need that energy.
yeah, and I mean I won't speak for Pezzetta, but I mean if I was in that situation, that would kind of get tired pretty quick.
Yeah.
Right? He's a proud guy. He wants to play. He forced his way into the NHL by being the player he is. I think they might owe it to him to either get him in the lineup every once in a while or find another place for him to play, because it's not good. It's not good for a player to be sitting this long.
Yes, and preferably if they find another place for him to play, it can't be Ottawa, Buffalo, Toronto.
Yeah, we have a Michael Pezzetta no trade list. He doesn't
Yes,
have one, but we have a
we
list
do.
that he's not allowed to go to any Boston. He cannot go to Boston.
No,
Don't do that.
no,
Toronto, definitely not. Yeah, don't send him
absolutely
to
not.
these places.
Any of the Florida teams? No, not that either. Although I feel like, you know what? I feel like Florida would take him and turn him into something.
I was just about to say, as soon as you said no Florida, I was like, the Panthers would turn him into like a 20-goal scorer.
Yeah.
And just not, that would be the end of it. We would never hear the end of Michael Pezzetta.
All right, Panthers,
gonna
call
happen.
Kent Hughes. Call him and do this above board, because you don't want to get accused of tampering. And we're going to talk about that in just one moment here on Locked On Canadiens. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. If you love sports, you're going to love Prize Picks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any of your favorite sports, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on the action. Here's why you need to get started today. You can win up to 200 times your money on Prize Picks. You can get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. No need to win, the $50 is guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers fun weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday, where select player projections are discounted up to 25%. This week on Prize Picks, I'm eyeing the hockey board. I'm looking at Jack Hughes for more than 4 shots on goal, and I'm going to play with fire and look at Lane Hudson for more than a goal. It's so simple to make my picks and have fun with friends while potentially cashing out fast. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right. We briefly touched on this the other day as a joke, but now I think we have to discuss this. So, from what I can tell, Larry Brooks of the New York Post, I believe he's still New York
Yes.
Post. Long time.
Brooksy.
Yes, Brooksy,
Yeah.
New York Rangers beat reporter, has either hinted or reported that the New York Rangers are interested in Ottawa Senators captain Brady Tkachuk. Now, nowhere else is this information. This is literally like Brooksy claiming he has inside information that the New York Rangers are targeting him. This has made Michael Andlauer, owner of the the Ottawa Senators, and noted Habs fan, angry. And he's accusing them of tampering. So this has been extremely interesting, but my big question here is, how is any of this tampering?
Yeah, that's, I think, the question that's on everybody's mind right now, because none of what is being described as tampering. Larry Brooks is not a New York Rangers employee. He writes for a newspaper, tabloid, but a newspaper. He's a writer. It would be like if we tried to trade for Brady Tkachuk and Michael Andlauer came on and said the Canadiens are tampering. No, it's just two idiots with a show who are tampering. Like, that's not the same thing, man.
Also, can you name one NHL team that wouldn't take Brady Tkachuk in a heartbeat?
Yeah, exactly. I'm interested in Connor McDavid. Like, it doesn't mean we're tampering. It just
Stop
means
tampering with the Oilers.
I just like, look, if you're an everydayer, even if you're not, even if you just tune in occasionally, you know that we love just dunking on the Ottawa Senators. It's impossible not to. I just don't know how the fans can defend this. I don't know, like, what is tampering? Like, they're not.
What are you talking about is the first thing.
Yeah. So like, let's imagine that the Rangers are like actually like in contact with the Ottawa Senators to try to get Brady Tkachuk. Is that tampering? That's just trade
Absolutely not.
negotiations. I'm
That's
so
not.
confused.
Right? Like, you can call any NHL play, like any NHL team. If you are in the front office of an NHL team, you can call your counterpart on the other team and be like, "Hey, is this guy available?" All they have to do is say no. That's it.
it's basically them saying that's HIPAA and then hanging the phone up. Like I don't have to talk to you about this.
Yes.
This is what
Or
I
like
think
in the
is,
group chat. Put it in the group chat.
yeah, the WhatsApp that all of those GMs are in. I'd love to see the memes in there. There's got to be some really good ones. Anyway, what I think is happening here, and it's not a unique thought. I've read it in a couple places at this point, but it makes the most sense to me. Michael Andlauer is still so angry that he bought this team and they took a pick away from him. He's still so mad that they
He's
never
trying to
mentioned that
find a
to him
way.
during the sale, and he's trying to get that pick back by way of the Rangers tampering. And which isn't even like, they wouldn't just give the Senators the pick back out of pity. That's not how this works. They would take a pick from the Rangers for sure if that's what's happening. It's not. And also, everybody tampers for real in this league. To find the one example where that's not happening and say that's tampering, one of the funniest things of the season so far. It's right up there with Mike Matheson pointing at the puck mark on the glass. It's right there.
Your theory is really good. My theory is just like, it's simpler. It's essentially he's trying to distract from an underperforming team.
Oh, that's so good too, though. That's
Yeah.
so good too.
I know they've got a couple of like they've got a couple of good games recently, but I really think that like they are wildly underperforming expectations for the second year in a row, right? And I think that's one of the biggest things is so he's trying to distract them by being like, it's New York's fault. Or at least don't focus on what's going on here. Or, rally more around Brady Tkachuk, right? And it's not like this is like none of this is against Brady Tkachuk. Like I don't think that he's calling New York being like, please take me. Like I don't think that's happening, right?
No.
He has everything that he said is, I'm happy in Ottawa. Obviously, if there's a situation that works better for him at some point down the line, that might happen, like a trade, or maybe he gets asked to get traded, or maybe like out of courtesy, the Senators, they continue to be underwhelming constantly. Like they trade him at some point in his career to a team that has a chance. Like I get it, out of courtesy, a lot of teams do that, but we're nowhere near that. We're very early in his contract. He just had a baby. He's like put roots down in Ottawa, right? And everywhere he goes, he says he's happy in Ottawa, right? Like, so I just don't think that there's anything that's related to this. And again, like if the New York Rangers want Brady Tkachuk, great. We all do. Right?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong that any of them did here, And even if they told Larry Brooks, we want Brady Tkachuk, like even if they said that's a guy we want, if they're not taking any action to steal Brady Tkachuk away from Ottawa, it is not tampering.
No, I think they're just the most mad anyone could be at the moment. I do think that the Senators have just opened themselves up to accusations of tampering towards them when, I don't know, let's just say on July 1st this year, they signed somebody to a contract at 12:01 p.m. Well, how did you negotiate that contract? You couldn't have done it before the clock struck 12. You're not allowed to. So what happened there, Mike? Like those, glass houses, stones, all that jazz. Like everybody in this league tampers to find, like I said, to find the one example of it not really being tampering and to be like, that's tampering, and just fill your diaper at the Board of Governors meeting is one of the funniest things you could do. So no notes, 10 out of 10.
But I do think
we're not really giving yeehaws, but this gets yeehaws.
this is like yeehaw all the way out of the city, right?
Yeah.
But this is the thing now. Like it's like I know what I'm doing Canada Day. I'm literally sitting there refreshing to see what time the Ottawa Senators are all signing.
Yeah. Yep. If we get a 12:01, I'm filing the report. I will write Gary Bettman a letter to complain.
We get anything earlier than 12:15, like it's tampering.
Yeah, for sure. You can't negotiate a contract that fast. No way.
Absolutely not. All right. That's it for today's episode, but please don't leave because we have trivia and our contest. Ian, do you want to take it away with trivia, and then I'll do contest after?
Yeah, let's do trivia. So yesterday's question was, in honor of Lane Hudson passing the rookie defenseman point streak of Chris Chelios, who had the assist on Chris Chelios' first NHL goal? And the answer was Bob Gainey and Tom Curvers. I thought it was very funny that Bob Gainey, that was his 373rd point, and that was Tom Curver's second career point. So two dudes at very different points of their career. Shout out to Good Sport 65 on YouTube who got that one right. I believe the other day when I couldn't recall who got the answer correct, I believe it was Good Sport 65. So they are on it. I am not. Appreciate you putting in your answers and your knowledge there. All right. Today's question, because it's an off day, it's a special interest question for myself about surrounding the Taro Sugimoto pick. For those who may not Be aware, in 1974, as a show of disappointment with the entry draft process, the Buffalo Sabres used the 183rd pick to draft forward Taro Sugimoto from the Tokyo Katana. Of course, that player never existed. Taro Sugimoto was a figment of their imagination that they made up to make fun of the NHL. To compound matters, some actually good players were picked after they used the Taro Sugimoto pick, including this player picked by the Montreal Canadiens at 199th overall, who went on to win 2 Stanley Cups with the Edmonton Oilers. Who is that player? So if you have it, put it in the comments down below. We'll pin whoever gets it right and shout you out on the next episode. The Taro Sugimoto thing is my favorite. I think it's the greatest story in the history of hockey, and I will not be told otherwise.
It's one of the most interesting things to happen in hockey history. Okay, so real quick, 199th pick, 2 Stanley Cups with the Edmonton Oilers. Montreal picked them in what year?
74.
1974. All right, awesome. You have your trivia question now for our contest. So it is Spotify Wrapped season. We are giving away Ian's very precious Carey Price signed picture. It is not even an 8x11. It is an 11x13. It is massive. It is like the size of a brownie pan.
It's almost life size. It's crazy.
It's fantastic. You can't fit Ian in the picture in the frame at the same time. And all you have to do is, if you are on Spotify, if you listen to us on Spotify, send us a screenshot showing us we are in your top 5 in your Spotify Wrapped. If you do not listen to us on Spotify, but on another podcast app, please send us a screenshot of a review that you left for us recently on wherever it is that you listen to us. And you can do that by sending it to lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. We will also accept it on our Instagram or Blue Sky, or I don't know if you can do this on TikTok, but TikTok accounts. We're Locked On Canadiens pretty much everywhere. And in the meantime, while you're doing that, please make sure that you are subscribed to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Please tell your friends, please subscribe. And also you can find us all over social media. I'll tell you again, on Instagram, we're at Locked On Canadiens. On TikTok, we're at Locked On Canadiens. On Blue Sky, we're at Locked On Canadiens. Our Gmail is Locked On Canadiens. We are not Locked On Canadiens. I am the active stick, and Ian is at Maybe It's Ian. We want to thank everyone so much for listening, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Thank you.